opposite bridge over there, and moved in here from Georgia to get away from industrial things, to have their peace. And they are mad, and they will be in contact.
Okay.
So just want to make sure.
Could we see a contract? We've heard there was a contract.
The only contract that I'm aware of is between the company and Mr. Keith.
Do we know if it's a legal contract? And the reason I asked that, sir?
I mean, there's a contract apparently between the Borden Springs gentleman, Mr. Roy Weaves Jr. I think they have something already in place. And I think there may be a few other landowners on Turkey Head, and so. I mean, right now, see, we don't. So those are, that's between the company and the private, and the land.
Just like with the Andy Griffith show, when Barney was going to marry this woman, and it turned out she was already married. In other words, the contract wasn't legal. So, we need to make sure that the contract that they do have is legal. In other words, if we break them up, then are we responsible for the breakup or what? In other words, if we don't know that they're actually together, how do we work that?
Doug, you had a question earlier, or you had a comment?
Well, it was basically, Mr. Dewberry addressed it. Most of these people are going to even speak a foreign language. They're not going to be high school graduates, I can assure you. It's not. I mean, I stay in hotels with them.
Wes?
In regards to 852, I live on 852. I was just curious if at this point, if the commission as a whole, or if any individual commissioners have been approached by NES or the landowners expressing interest to close the road.
Yeah. You want to answer that?
I haven't.
So nobody.
Where did this rumor close the road?
Are you talking about landowners coming to us about closing the road?
Landowners who, like Mr. Kitchens or anybody who's intending to put wind turbines on Turkey Heaven Mountain. If whether either the landowners or the company. Yeah. Has anybody been approached?
Yes, well, they didn't. They just asked. How did they say it? That they would want to know if we would be in favor of closing the road. And what I told them in that meeting, the same way I told them in the first meeting we was here. And this is what, what's to do with this table. I'll be glad to come talk to anybody, but at the end of the day, it's no different about, setting up a committee to be a legislation committee for Cleburne County, anything going on in Montgomery. That's one of the things I'm going to try to get set up here in the next couple of months, where a couple of commissioners will be on that committee. But when we talked to them out there, they did, we talked to them at Mr. Pollard's house, and the company was saying, that they had to close a portion of the road. And I mean, we just, I don't think we listened. Like I told them, I said, any decisions that needed to be made at this table, and I recommend that y'all come to this meeting, meet with the commission so we can get it on the table. And that's one of the things I brought up the same night that all this here sort of broke down in our first meeting. I think a couple of us was here. And I thought I asked questions, and I thought at the time when Ryan come back and asked the commission to go down and vote, or to go down and talk to exclude Cleburne County from the meeting. And as he asked to vote, he also asked, if anybody has anything they want to say or discussion about that resolution at the time. And that's probably the first time, unless I ever met Mr. Kitchens, at one of the dinners they had out there at the fire department, I think it's the first time I've ever really knew who Mr. Kitchens was at that first meeting. But the only ones that I have ever met was when we went out at Mr. Pollard's house and met with Robin, I think it was. Which they had, just a minute. Well, I wasn't invited.
Was Brooks the last contact you outside of closing the road?
I was not to close the road, I mean, about to close.
Ms. Lindell?
One of the things that you do with the research, I would ask you to research is that our current presidential administration is very big on green energy. And if a project has merit on its own, it does not need taxpayer money. The green energy industry is highly taxpayer subsidized. If you remember Solyndra was just one. There were a number of companies. They get taxpayers' money. They do what they say they're going to do, and then they turn around and walk away. If that happens here, what are you going to have in your contract to say, now if the company's bankrupt, even if you have a contract, they're not going to follow through. But you potentially end up with a mass of windmills that will be rusting monuments forever and ever, which will curtail your future use of that land. Think, for example, Fort McClellan. I drive through the park that will never be cleaned up, and it's beautiful land. And I think, what could have been done had that property not been contaminated such, and you potentially run into that same issue.
I think too, first of all, to say what we're going to do or not going to do, somebody's got to come to us first. And as I just said, they finally come to the table two times that I know of. And the last time they come to the table, I expressed that if anything that's going to go on, it needs to come to the table to look at a contract or to get an attorney to look at the contract or review. I mean, we spend a lot of time going to look at a bunch of persons, and they're not going to bring no person. I mean, I don't know. And, but I mean, as far as doing research, I'll do the research. I mean, I think as a commissioner, I was in class on Thursday and Friday. I come home, I stay on the phone all day Saturday and all day Sunday, calling officials up, and whether it's the only thing I can find that I can get to in my pickup truck. Whether and I went. And I met with everybody. And the second day, and I don't know if all these people on the payroll, I don't think so. But I don't know if they're on the payroll or not. But at the second day, I was trying to find somebody that was against the Turtles. And but I'll be glad to go look and do whatever I need to do and make a decision. But we don't have you can't just sort of, we're just sort of speculating until they come sit down at the table with us for once. And it'd be an open meeting, so.
Yes, there are 14,000 idle wind farms in the United States sitting there rusting. 14,000 because they're not profitable. And the other thing is, we're at the table every time the gate opens, because we won't be here. So, we can tell you we'll be at the table, and we will be glad to talk.
We're glad you're here.
Yes.
I know you are.
Miss Gay, it's not Miss Gay anymore.
We're glad you're here.
My brother Jerome, my brother from Nelsonville, traveled with it with his job. He's been to a wind farm in California where it's a viable industry, a wind there. He's also been to Romania. Now, you would think Romania was a huge mountains and everything. He went to a wind farm there. And so he saw both sides. And he's been to Romania. These huge turbines are up on this beautiful, gorgeous mountain. And they're just sitting there rusting because they're no longer have been maintained. Who knows why it didn't work, So my biggest concern is, our family has this gorgeous farm in Trent Valley at the base of that mountain. We've had it for close to 200 years. And, what's going to happen, even if this goes through, what's going to happen in our lifetime to those turbines? Many of the people in this room, in their lifetime, will not see that mountain restored ever. Even if they go through, and even if somebody tries to go blow them up and take them down, it's not going to ever be the same. Not in my lifetime, not in anybody's lifetime in this room, and not in my son's lifetime, who I hope will own that farm for the rest of his life in some capacity. So this is a much bigger picture than just a few people making money off their mountain. This is much bigger. It's an exponential information that this commission has in their hand to try to protect Cleburne County forever. So, oh, absolutely. And the picture that we can see is in the next room that shows this gorgeous mountain. So, you know, whatever anybody can do, they need to do it now. And I don't know if how many of you know this, 97% of the wind capital group is owned by investors in Ireland. 97%. And this group sold a wind farm in Oklahoma recently, but they could not complete because the Indian tribe out there is trying their best to protect bald eagles. Now they sold it because it was too big of a liability, and they sold it to a company called Trade Winds. Well, Trade Winds is a subsidiary of a company in Italy. So you've got these huge international companies, all these investors that are looking at the United States and the southeastern United States in particular because there's no wind farms here. Well, there's no wind farms here because there's no wind. It's just common sense that it is not a viable industry. The only time we have wind here is during a tornado. That's a pretty big wind. But, you know, I just really cannot see anybody with a few people's property and ruining this gorgeous county forever. And not just here, over in Edward County, and in Cherokee County. Some of the prettiest parts of the state of Alabama are all those ridges in Lookout Mountain. And I'm sure many of you have been there. If any of you have ever been in Little River Canyon, which is fairly close to where they're proposing the wind farm over there, that's some of the absolute most pristine, beautiful places in this state. And for anybody in this state to ever want to compromise the beauty of this state for the profit of a few, and most of the profit is going to be out of the country. It's not going to be here. Nobody in this county is going to profit from this except a very small number of people. Nobody. And everybody else will pay. And the price is so great. I cannot tell you the price that will be paid if this thing comes through. You can't put a price on what you will give up in this county.
Right. I was not any commissioners that took the time to do a background check on the wind farm people. I have. Just spend a little money, go to the test.com and tell me what you find. I've done a look, I know what's there.
I've got a quote here. I know y'all believe the internet, but it's a quote on an article from Warren Buffett. And he talks about, Warren Buffett signed over to Obama saying the rich need to pay their share and 30% is fair, and I'm going to be the first one to pay my 30%. He's talking about his investments and all, and the quote says that the only reason for a win, says, but I'm also not willing to take advantage of any tax credit I can get, tax incentive. And for my county and city, Berkshire, that he's talking about, he said, could I read it? It's just about one sentence. But this is Warren Buffett, and he's a brilliantly smart moneymaker. Should have been prepared. But he said that the tax credits, the tax incentives is the only reason for it. There is no money other than what. So what you're saying is nobody but you's going to make any money, but you and everybody's going to pay for it as a tax citizen. Plus, if you buy a bank of this wind energy, your power bill goes up. I promise. I promise. Research it. Our power bills will go up because of this.
Thank you.
What Doug is just talking about, they'll lead into this too. And the study that I've done on eminent domain, it don't matter what we think about eminent domain. If this project involves over 250 acres, maybe 230 acres or more, eminent domain will be enacted. Now, eminent domain, when enacted, is supposed to benefit the whole community. Now, unless we can prove that these wind turbines are going to benefit the whole community, we need to think about it before you even consider it. But, because eminent domain will definitely be a part that y'all will have no control over either.
Do we have in the county now, do we have like a county planning commission or a planners group that can help look out for what you could see 20 years from now, what you wanted in the county, citizens wanted?
This is it.
Is that something that I know that it's usually made up of volunteers in the communities that normally doesn't cost much money to do this? Is that something that maybe could be put together so that there is a committee?
We've had different boards before that were part of the industry board and maybe tourism board, but
Because, you know, we all are in here and we're faced with 2 projects that we see that are happening. But it's very well could be throughout the entire county. There could be hundreds. You know, I don't know what the palatable amount of wind turbines in Cleburne County is before all the residents leave, and we only have people that come by and say, that is a mistake. You know, there's going to be a point at which that there is a breaking point. And once there's an opportunity, and I'm going to say this, if you came to my place, I'm not able to put a wind turbine on my place because with their setbacks, okay? But if regulations of their setbacks got pushed through, and someone put one up right next door to me, and I couldn't sell my property, and I had an opportunity to put one, well, I sure would put one in order to leave. And I think my neighbors would, and then pretty soon everybody would, as long as there's those PTCs that are going to be able to fund those. So if we, and now I've heard the commissioners have each told me this, that we don't have a good, and you told me this, that we don't have a good way to confirm those are friends of mine on Facebook here. Know that when I was a kid, I built a coaster wagon, and I realized that I didn't need brakes until right before I wrecked. So I think, you know, we're at a good point right now that we know that we need to be able to put brakes on wind turbines.
so like zoning or something like that?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be zoning. There needs to be a way to stop it so that, today I can't tell you what that would be. I know that we've asked for a moratorium, which gives some time to figure this out. I think I proposed in the very beginning, I had it in my speech that was cut down because it was only 3 minutes, but that we don't have the money in this county to properly research this. I mean, you guys you're supposed to be part-time commissioners and you're paid as such part-time. And unfortunately, we don't have the money to make you full-time people to be able to spend a lot of time on this. So if you're having to use those resources that are available, which are volunteers, hopefully not angry volunteers, hopefully very cordial volunteers that are friendly to people and say, look, we'll go with you, we'll do what we need to do. So a planning commission would be I think would be a great thing, and there's people in the community that I know that would love to volunteer for that, along with people that are elected that could be involved.
Ms. Judy?
Yes, I just have a question. I don't know if I should address it to you, Mr. Robbins, that you met with the groups, the companies. Would you please tell us what good they tell us that we're going, that this county should get from having wind turbines?
Well, as far as what they told me, what good we would get from it,
Well, what good would you get from it that made everybody say, oh, let's go?
well, I think the biggest thing they were looking at was that it did create some jobs, and that I didn't get any negative feedback as far as it did increase their tax revenue. It did increase a lot of local business, and
As in, how would we get local business from?
well, when you start well, from the construction of the turbine, the maintenance of the turbine,
Just cement, and what else would we get?
well, as it created the jobs and the tax base that we would get off, that they get off of it up there, and what we would hope to get off of it here.
Did they tell you how much money that the county would?
As far as this county here, no, they didn't tell us how much this county was get. Just what they speculated when we met with Robin, what he speculated was around $500,000, I think.
So we really don't know then what. Pardon?
That's right. The meeting we met with them was, what, about 2 hours? Yeah, about hour and a half.
Yeah, when I do research, this would be a really good place, like real estate brokers and people like that are in these towns. They would be a really good go-to people because their livelihood depends on if they sell a house or not. And clearly in these towns that these turbines are put, the devaluation of property is unreal. So those real estate people are not paid by wind companies more than likely, and you may be able to get you somebody on the phone that can say, yeah, this is a good real purchase, that would be the property. I've talked to a couple of Murraysville, Pennsylvania, and they flat said, bottom out.
Well, the group in Oklahoma that managed to get the Senate to pass the moratorium was headed by realtors.
Really?
Yeah.
Mr. Martin,
Yeah, I would like to suggest that maybe in the future, when something this big is coming through Cleburne County, it could be put on the front page of the Cleburne News.
this, I mean, I was quoted back in 2011, we had people studying mid-tower. I don't think anybody took it serious at the time.
Where everybody's seen it.
I don't know. I know that we have meetings, and I spoke about it. I said there are wind companies looking at Cleburne County, and it's back 2011. It's documented. It was even documented in another magazine.
Well, most of these people in here didn't know
I
that.
know this war, but I mean, it was put in the paper. I know not everybody reads the paper, but
It may be too late for this project, but in the future, when something this big is coming to Cleburne County,
well, and I said this before, we don't have zoning out of the county, so that's where we're at right now. This is an issue between the company and the landowner at the time. And I said a while ago, what we can do as a commission as a whole, if the commission votes as a whole, is ask the state legislature to put a moratorium or to put some sort of regulation coming up this next spring. Or even write a letter to the governor. I don't know if he would do anything or not, but I think BG has put it on the agenda. We'll be voting on it 2 weeks, Monday at 3 o'clock.
and just what you're voting on,
Yes, whether we can do is go forward with either asking, I think his resolution, maybe he can give you a copy and let you see what we're.
Let's put something in place for the future. We as commissioners need to make sure that we do have some kind of regulation in place. But this thing should have been addressed in 2011. But when I asked, I was told that nobody had actually had a complaint against it. But that's my understanding then, after I asked, I found out there was an article written about it. And Cleburne News. So the thing is that we have to go forward, and what Adrian has proposed, the commission needs to look at and make a decision. Yes, we do have regulations. Also, under the state guidelines, you do have zoning laws, you have permit, building permit laws, you have, let's see, the road usage, there's 2 more, road usage, building permit, zoning laws.
Setback.
And the thing is when you put those laws in place, they affect everybody. They affect everybody, not just that company. But if we put those laws in place, everybody's got to abide by them. Before you build something, you've got to get that permit. So are all these regulations good for the county? I don't think everybody's going to like all the regulations. I don't think it's a big thing. But yes, we do need to have guidelines, but we've got to go forward with it. We're at this point now, and there's nothing we can change in the past. All we can do is go forward, and that's what we have to do.
And
I think the setback that they were talking about were for wind turbines only. And the reason for those setbacks were to keep them from being an annoyance on the other members of the community. Yes, ma'am. And now that, in other words, EPA, that's actually an EPA design at that, but they actually recommend making them all in wood.
Some communities go 4 miles and then so half a mile is not that great,
To say that, I mean, that's an EPA design, we'd like to have a good wind farm design that you can live with.
We, thank y'all for coming, and I hope we give you ample opportunity to ask some questions. I know, this is something that the commission is looking at, and all of us has took a heavy toll in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and, it's been, we've all heard good, we've all heard bad, we've all been approached, you can't go to the grocery store without hearing it. So, but that works both ways, I want you to know, we get it both ways. But I do appreciate you coming, I do appreciate you asking questions in a civil manner. Hope y'all have a good week. You're dismissed.